The drama surrounding Stephanie White's return to Indiana carried a weight that few coaches ever truly experience. When she walked onto the court at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in late 2024, it wasn't just a homecoming. It was the beginning of a new era, one built around youth, expectation, and a level of public scrutiny that felt almost unfair. Her first coaching stint in Indiana had been defined by veterans who knew exactly who they were. Tamika Catchings had already carved out her legacy. Briann January was established. The locker room had direction, purpose, and a belief system shaped by years of playoff battles. White simply had to guide a group of professionals who understood their roles. This time, everything was different. The franchise she inherited in 2024 was bursting with potential but lacked the collective experience required to survive deep playoff runs. It wasn't a team ready to contend just because it had talent. It was a team still learning how to breathe under pressure. From the moment Caitlin Clark stepped into the league, the Fever were no longer seen as a rebuilding project. They were seen as a team that should win immediately because of the unprecedented attention she brought to the sport. Clark didn't just increase ticket sales. She reshaped the entire financial structure around the franchise. She transformed media interest, sponsorship deals, and broadcast ratings. Suddenly, Indiana wasn't just a team, they were the epicenter of women's basketball. And at the center of that epicenter stood Stephanie White, responsible for guiding a rookie with a level of expectation even Hall of Famers never had to shoulder. White understood the magnitude of this moment, and she accepted it willingly. But it meant coaching with almost no margin for error. Every rotation, every substitution, every timeout was judged not just by basketball fans, but by millions of new viewers drawn to the sport solely because of Clark. White's coaching style is rooted in intensity, honesty, and defensive discipline. In Connecticut, she proved her ability to build a system where effort and physicality determined the outcome of games. Her players trusted her because she held them to a standard that often pushed them out of their comfort zones but ultimately made them better. That approach worked with veterans like Alyssa Thomas, who thrived under high expectations and physical demands. Transitioning that same style to Indiana required adjustments, especially with young stars still developing mentally and physically. Clark's game is creative, instinctual, and sometimes chaotic. Boston's game relies on physicality and feel. The surrounding pieces, Mitchell, Hull, Nalissa Smith, and others, each brought unique strengths but weren't accustomed to the intensity White demanded. It was a delicate balance between maintaining structure and allowing freedom, between pushing and protecting, between challenging and nurturing. Clark's injuries only magnified the challenge. The string of lower body setbacks she suffered during the 2025 season didn't just slow her down physically, they disrupted the rhythm White was trying to establish. Clark wanted to play. She always wants to play. Her competitive drive sometimes bordered on reckless self-sacrifice. But the Fever medical staff insisted on prioritizing long-term health, even when the pressure to put her back on the floor grew louder. The outside world didn't understand that healing requires patience. Fans demanded updates. Critics speculated about hidden complications. Reporters questioned why the team seemed hesitant to offer details. Through it all, White had to remain calm, offering just enough transparency to keep the media at bay while protecting her players' privacy and well-being. The comparisons to Cheryl Reeve and the Minnesota Lynx haunted every discussion about Indiana's future. Reeve had built a dynasty around Maya Moore, but she also had Augustus, Whalen, and Brunson, three established talents who could anchor a championship identity. White didn't have that luxury. Boston was still developing. Mitchell was only beginning to hit her prime. The rest of the roster was young, inconsistent, or still searching for their long-term role. White needed the time and space to build chemistry, but Indiana didn't have the luxury of patience. Clark's presence meant everything was accelerated. Every game mattered more. Every mistake carried more weight. Every loss was treated like a failure, even when the roster instability made success difficult. Dana Bonner's departure only added to the turmoil. White had believed the veteran forward could provide stability, leadership, and playoff experience. But the fit wasn't right. Bonner looked uncomfortable in the offensive system and struggled defensively at a level she hadn't before. When she stepped away, it created a ripple effect through the locker room that made everyone question how fragile the team chemistry truly was. But the most telling part of that saga wasn't her departure, it was what happened afterward. The Fever started winning. Without Clark. Without Bonner. Without excuses. The remaining players took ownership of their season, and White embraced them fully. It revealed a simple truth. The players who stayed were the ones committed to the long-term vision, even when it demanded sacrifice. Through the chaos, White continued shaping Clark into the kind of player who could anchor a championship team. Clark's turnovers, defensive lapses, and physical vulnerability were all areas that required growth. White's challenge was helping Clark improve while preserving the creativity that made her special. That required patience and trust on both sides. Clark had to accept constructive criticism. White had to resist the temptation to micromanage. Their relationship, built on mutual respect, began taking shape through adversity rather than victory. And by the time Indiana pushed Las Vegas to overtime in the semifinals, it was clear that Clark wasn't the only one evolving. White was proving she could adapt, innovate, and coach through the most intense spotlight the WNBA had ever seen. Now Indiana stands on the edge of something potentially historic. They have the young stars. They have the fan base. They have the organizational support. But what they need more than anything is stability. Time for Clark, Boston, and their supporting cast to solidify their connection. Time for White to refine her systems. Time for the franchise to breathe amid the pressure. Whether they can build a dynasty depends on their willingness to grow together, make mistakes together, and trust in the foundation being built brick by brick. So now the question shifts to you. Do you believe Stephanie White is the coach who can take this young, talented roster and turn them into champions? Or does Indiana need someone with a different style to guide Clark through the next phase of her career? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you love deep dives like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next story.